So in the previous video, we looked at what our rights might be and what ethical rules might be, and saw that Kant suggested the principle of universalizability. He said that you should act only on a maxim that you can at the same time will for everybody to act on. You should accept the maxim only if you say yes, it's everyone else should act in this way as well. And we saw that that looks like that's a way of treating other people fairly, but then we asked, well, why do we care about fairness so much? So we're going to look in this video at another principle, the principle of humanity, that relates to the principle of universalizability and humanity, and we're going to see what Kant thinks humanity is, and then in the next video we'll put them together. So, just to be clear why we're asking this question, we want to know if ethically okay maxims are the universalizable maxims. Why is that? Why does being universalizable make a maxim ethically okay, and being not universalizable make a maxim not okay? The question is, what value are we respecting when we act on a universalizable maxim? So you might think, oh, well, maybe it's because universalizable maxims are the utility maximizing ones, and we're just going to be utilitarians. So sometimes following universalizable rules will maximize utility, but not always. But the utilitarian says, no, you need to always maximize utility, even when doing so would violate sort of so-called moral rules. And that's what's going on probably in the Omelas and Trolley cases. As we'll see, it's arguable that in those cases you're acting on, at least Kant would say, you're acting on non-universalizable maxims, but they do maximize utility. Or remember the lying promise from the previous video. The maxim for the lying promise is not universalizable, and yet it could maximize utility. So being universalizable and maximizing utility need not coincide. So for the utilitarian, you should always maximize utility. And really, they have only one moral rule. That is their moral rule, maximize utility. And that's not always going to coincide with acting on a universalizable maxim. Okay, so, well, what might be the value in more detail behind the universalizability maxim then? Well, let's look at some other actions that we think might be wrong. So sometimes people worry about what they call paternalism. Paternalism is when you sort of become a parent, and in particular perhaps a father, towards another in an inappropriate way. So imagine, for example, your roommate or your friend or whatever doesn't like your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and so forges a note to your boyfriend or your girlfriend that's going to alienate your boyfriend or your girlfriend. So they're doing this out of concern for you, but it's not something you want them to do. They're intervening in your life in a way you think, no, it's my life. Or, again, your friend decides, oh, you're on Facebook too much, you're on Instagram too much, whatever. Says, I'm going to install a program on your computer that's going to control how you can use Facebook or Instagram. And maybe they're right, but we still think that they shouldn't be doing that. An authoritarian government might be a much worse example. So it would decide who you marry, what job you work at, what your food is, what your life is like. And in general, usually authoritarian governments are not good at these decisions because they're run by people who are looking out for themselves and not the entire population. But even if we can imagine that actually the leadership of the government is relatively altruistic and has some concerns for its population, and that whatever government would replace the authoritarian government would be even worse. Nonetheless, even if it's in the end what we should the best government available and should be accepted, there's still something wrong going on here. Even if this authoritarian government maximizes utility, even if it's right, there's still something problematic with that situation. Or one last example: imagine that there's a leak in your sink. In your kitchen, so the pipes beneath the kitchen sink are leaking. So you call a plumber to come over. The plumber arrives, and you might sort of interact with the plumber in two different ways. You might talk to the plumber, let the plumber do their job, and then pay them after the leak has been fixed and the plumber leaves. Or, instead, you might whack the plumber over the head while they're under the sink, and then just stick their head in the leak and use their body to plug up the leak. Well, so one of these is okay, and the other is clearly not. So what's going on in all of these cases? Well, that makes the wrong action wrong. Well, we've been talking about means and ends, and let's remember that ends are the goals or the consequences, and the means are the ways to get the ends, the actions we take in order to bring about the ends we want. And a pure means would be like a tool, or like a hammer, or a saw, or a computer, or your car. You can use that tool in whatever way you like in achieving your goals. You can destroy the tool if that's best. You can throw away the tool. You can damage the tool. You can treat it well. It's entirely up to you in pursuing your goals how you treat the tool. The tool doesn't have any rights of its own. And the problem in these different cases is that looks like the wrong action is wrong because it treats another person as a tool. It looks like in the plumber case, you treat the plumber's body as a tool for you to use. In the authoritarian case, the government treats its subjects as mere means, as tools to arrange. Like, you have a collection of photographs or something, you arrange it how you want. The government treats its subjects like that. The paternalistic friend treats you as a means and decides, I'm going to arrange your life in the way that I think is best, in the way that you might, sort of figure out, well, what's, the best way for me to keep my tools healthy. So, and you might also think that the problem with non-universalizable maxims is precisely that they treat others merely as means, that the other people's ability to pursue their ends is not respected when you act on a non-universalizable maxim. When you act on the murder maxim, or the theft maxim, or the non-altruism maxim, you're not really respecting other people's ability to also pursue their own goals in the ways that they have decided to. You're interfering with that. So Kant sort of coalesces this idea in what he calls the principle of humanity, which says, act in such a way as to treat humanity, whether your own or someone else's, always as an end and never merely as a means. So what does Kant mean by humanity? Well, two things, rationality and autonomy. So what are they? So by rationality, well, you're rational, and there are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself that manifest that rationality. So you can ask, what are my goals? And you can make decisions about them. You can make decisions about, well, okay, given that these are my goals, how am I going to achieve them? How am I going to get them? How am I going to bring them about? You can ask yourself those questions and then act on the answers. You can also ask yourself, are my actions morally okay? Are they good? Are they bad? Right? You can ask those questions. And so when Kant talks about rationality, it means having the capacity to do those things, to formulate goals, to imagine the world, and and your plans, and to check for how those goals are going to fit together and how you might most pursue them. So being rational is you have a picture of the good, of a good life, and how to pursue the good life. And you can evaluate, right? What are my goals? Am I acting in a way that will get me my goals? Autonomy is basically something you get when you're rational. So having autonomy means that you're a self-legislator. It means that you decide for yourself how you're going to live your life. And that's built into this word, actually. The auto part means self. Like automobile, it means self-moving. So auto means self. Nomi means rule. So autonomy means self-rule. You don't need to remember that, but just in case you were curious. So when you're autonomous, it means that you have ultimate responsibility for a lot of things, for your choices, for your goals, and for the way in which you pursue those goals. And you're not a slave to your passions. It's your desires don't just control you. You can consider, do I want to act on these desires or not? So the way in which humans are autonomous is in large part by being rational. The way in which we make decisions about these things is by rationally considering them and evaluating different answers. So Kant says act in such a way as to treat humanity, and so he means really sort of your ability to make decisions for yourself about your life. Whether it's your ability to do that or other people's ability to do that, always treat beings that have that ability as ends and never merely as means. So we've talked about what humanity means. It means being rational and autonomous. What does he mean by end and means? So, in particular, what does it mean to treat someone as an end? We've talked about what ends and means are. What's involved in treating someone as an end or as a means? So it means treating someone with the respect that they deserve, and it's in particular the humanity, their rational autonomy, and so that means allowing someone to pursue their life according to their decisions. Of course, they need to do so in a way that's compatible with you pursuing your life in accordance with your decisions, but it's that treating someone else as letting them exercise their rationality and autonomy. So, and as I said, it's not just any old pursuit. It's what is involved in respecting autonomy and rationality is each of us engages in our pursuit of our goals in a way that's compatible with everyone else pursuing their goals. And that means we're not taking advantage of one another. And you can see the sort of the fairness idea showing up here. We're each going to allow each of us to pursue our goals rationally. That's if we're treating each other as ends. Now, what about treating someone as a means? Well, that means you deal with someone so that you achieve your own goals. And as we said, right, a means is a tool. You use a tool to get your ends. Now, there are lots of times when we treat someone as both an end and a means, and Kant think that's perfectly okay. So, for example, when I hire the plumber and treat the plumber well, pay the plumber, and the plumber leaves, I'm using the plumber, right? I'm using the plumber to get my sink fixed. Or when you buy a cup of coffee, you're using the salesperson to get what you want, namely coffee. But you're not using them just as a means. You're also using them treating them as an end because you're respecting their ability to decide what to do for themselves. So you're treating them both as an end and as a means. When you treat them with respect, and then given within the scope of treating them with respect, you then act in a way that's going to get your own goals. But you could use someone only as a means, and that's what's wrong. That's when you knock someone out and use their head as a plug, when you lie to someone, when you act paternalistically, then that's when you're using someone only as a means. You're not treating them as distinctively human, as having this ability to rationally answer these questions about their own life. You're interfering with their ability to do that, and once you do that, then you're treating them only as a means, and that's the problem. That's what Kant thinks is bad. That's what he said, principle of humanity says, treat people both as ends and as means, respect their ability to make decisions for themselves. Given that you've done that, you can treat them as means, but only given that you're doing so. So when you don't do that, then, or when you're not treated in that way, then you're not given a say. So this might seem intuitive, but part of the reason we've been talking about the principle of humanity is we wanted to integrate it with we wanted to understand why should we believe the principle of universalizability. So in the next video, we're going to see about how these two principles relate. How the idea, okay, on the one hand, we should respect other people's ability to make decisions about their life, and on the other hand, we should act on universalizable maxims. How do those two ideas fit together? And then in the final video, I'll offer some evaluations of this deontological picture and of this Kantian picture in particular.